Kyle Harrison, after a start in Arizona last night that only went 2 innings and included 4 strikeouts and no runs, Kyle Harrison is heading to Sacramento this week and could come up shortly thereafter. Susan Slusser reports Farhan Zaidi, quote, all but says Harrison will be here soon.
Let's go.
So, there's your new starter.
Yeah, there's your deadline action.
There it is.
AJ Pollock, Tyro Estrada, and Kyle Harrison.
Kyle Harrison.
There you go.
See, do you feel better now, Larry Krueger?
Pollock's in the lineup tonight?
He is the lineup tonight.
That's right. He's probably batting third. He's probably batting third. Yeah, I don't have the lineup yet, but he's in it. He's in it.
Yes, the Pollock era has begun.
Let's go. Let's go. How are you, buddy?
Good, guys. How you guys doing?
We're great. Were there any fights between media members today as one side went Brock and the other one went Trey? And then they went, you jerk! And then they punched each other and threw food at one another. Did that happen today?
No, but you know what? It could be trending in that direction. I mean, the vitriol, I think you kind of guys were discussing it probably yesterday on the show a little bit about just how nasty it's potentially getting. But yeah, today, no fights on the field, no fights on the sideline, no arguments. It's amazing the number of people can watch a practice, though, and all have different takes on what they saw. But Brock Purdy was really, probably easily the best quarterback on the field today. Kind of bounced back. Yesterday, he hung a interception to the ball kind of hung in the air. Drake Greenlaw picked it off. He had a deep ball that kind of hung a little bit, was a little underthrown. And Brock yesterday didn't play particularly well. Today, he was fantastic, and easily he was the sharpest quarterback on the field. Probably the performance was highlighted by a red zone drill pass where he kind of threw a little perfect, I want to call it a fade, but more like a corner route with touch to Juwan Jennings, who beat his man with a great move, created a little separation, and Purdy just dropped it in his lap perfectly at the pylon for a touchdown. That was probably the highlight play of the day.
You touched on something that I think is interesting, Larry, the idea that we're all kind of seeing things differently, and there's probably 30 or 40 reporters all watching practice, and everyone's got their own opinion. Is it agenda-driven? And if so, why would a reporter have an agenda in terms of what Kyle Shanahan decides to do at quarterback?
It's a great question. I don't know that, are people, like I'm there. I don't consider myself necessarily a reporter. So, but I try to be as objective as possible when watching these things. But I think everybody's bias just kind of creeps in. You either feel like Trey is not getting his due and deserves more, like maybe a bigger, better runway. Other people look at it like, hey, you know what? Nothing should be handed to anybody in the NFL. It's all about what Brock did last year in the second half of the year. There's a definite bias against Sam Darnold based on the way he played with the Jets and Panthers. And a lot of people are just really kind of pushing back on the idea that Sam Darnold could possibly, find a different level, which is shocking because he's only 25. And then there are a lot of people that are kind of upset that Brandon Allen's receiving reps and feel like that it's impacting the quarterback battle. And everybody wants to know, everybody wants to get to like the final chapter of this book without reading it, and we're all kind of trying to get to the cut down, and we're kind of guessing what it comes down to. To me, I think all three of these quarterbacks. Now, Brandon Allen, I'll put us on a different category. I don't think Brandon Allen can be the starter, but I think Brock Purdy can be the starter but he's got to show that he hasn't lost arm strength and ball speed. And Lance can be the starter, but he's got to show that he can throw with touch and timing and make all the layups. And Darnold can be the starter, but he's got to prove that he can play extended amounts of football without turning it over. Everybody's kind of got a task in front of them, something they've got to kind of prove so that they can take that starting gig.
Our buddy Larry Krueger with us here, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. I want to thank you for that thoughtful answer because it allowed us to watch Brandon Belt just go Oppo Taco while you were talking there on Tuesday. So it's Oppo Taco Tuesday for Brandon Belt with the Blue Jays. That was kind of fun. But anyway, back to the matters at hand. Larry, when you look at this, and this is what got everyone going, Mike Silver's got the article on the quarterback situation, and it made it sound like the options on the table include a trade of Lance, which I think many people get, but it included the idea of cutting Lance and saying that is possible. Do you agree with that? What do you see as the possible outcomes here?
I see the possible outcomes as Brandon Allen gets traded for a 7th-round pick at the cutdown, and they go with Darnold, Lance, and Purdy. Or Lance gets traded at the cutdown, and they go with Allen as the number 3, Darnold as the 2, and Purdy as the 1. I really can't envision a world where Lance gets cut, guys. I think that's just. I realize he has a high cap number for potentially a number 3 quarterback, but I mean, that seems like the unthinkable. Now, ultimately, the question's going to have to be decided. What's more valuable, having a 3rd quarterback who's super athletic with a lot of upside, or having that extra money on the cap going into 2024? And I know they're hugged up against the cap, and we all know they got a lot of great players, and that's going to be a tough decision. But I just can't picture they would cut him. It's a punitive situation on the cap this year if they tried to do that. If they trade him, it's not nearly as punitive. So if you could make a trade for him, I think you could argue it could make sense, but I don't think cutting him makes any sense at all. And then let me just give you my basic opinion, which is I believe Trey Lance is one of the 3 best quarterbacks they have. So would you cut one of the 3 best quarterbacks you have simply for cap savings in 2024? That to me seems a wild idea.
And it's interesting that you put it that way because there are people out there who think that Trey Lance is the best quarterback, the 2nd best, the 3rd best, not good at all. But I wonder what Kyle Shanahan thinks. And are you able to glean anything, or can any of us really determine what Kyle thinks based on the way he doles out the reps and the way that the practices are going?
He plays his cards close to the vest. I mean, I got a sense just from watching Brock Purdy last year in camp that, knowing what I know about football, that Kyle Shanahan was loving what he was seeing, and yet there were people right up until the minute of the cutdown that were convinced that they were going with Nate Sudfeld because of a $2 or $3 million payment. To me, it was obvious that Purdy had made the team. So, I think Kyle doesn't offer a whole lot. Now, John Lynch, on the other hand, did talk yesterday and revealed in that interview that Trey has improved significantly. So I kind of view this as kind of more of a fluid situation that they're monitoring every day. But I don't think we know the outcome of this. I mean, I think, there's a scenario where Trey plays really well in the preseason and some other team comes knocking for him in a trade. And maybe at that point, the Niners look at their situation, recommit to Purdy, and start thinking about that cap and make a trade and move him on to a different team. But I think everybody who's watching Trey Lance can see that he is improving. And to move him, I think, would be to do so at a considerable risk down the road, because he is improving, and there's no question about it. He still doesn't make the layups. He missed the throw to Kittle today that, is just a real basic throw. But he also, at times, looks like the best quarterback on the field.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. Larry, just because you're there and, you got the media availability afterward, do you think that any of this is permeating the 49er locker room? Do you notice anything that is in the heads of the players, as you called it, the vitriol that is being thrown back and forth based on their play?
I don't think it's divided the locker room, but I definitely think that if you ask a player about, hey, I got a question about your guy's quarterback, the players will say, which one? I've heard that from a couple players in the last few days. So they know that they have multiple quarterbacks. A couple of them have referenced the fact that this is a competition. So, I think there's, they have good feelings about their quarterbacks and their depth, especially on the heels of the way last season ended. But I don't think it's gotten to a point where it's divisive. Partly, Mark, because the quarterbacks themselves are so professional and they treat each other with such reverence and such respect that it's been largely a positive situation. But eventually, there's going to have to be a decision made on who's cut and who's on the team, who's one, who's two, who's three. And at that point, there's potential that this could divide the team. I don't think it would, but there's potential for it.
And it seems like the majority of the players are behind Brock Purdy as the one based on what he did last year down the stretch. But do you get a sense of how the further down depth chart decisions might affect the team, or is that just sort of a media and fan creation in terms of, drama for the backup spot?
Well, I think everybody sees that Trey Lance has talent. I think everybody sees that Sam Darnold has talent. But if Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch just arbitrarily, with a healthy Brock Purdy, put Trey Lance or Sam Darnold as the starting quarterback week 1 against Pittsburgh, I think they would open themselves up to a lot of criticism from within. The way that Brock played last year, he's got to get the first run. Somebody's either got to beat him out. He's got to show that he's diminished and not the player that he was. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of guys going, what is going on here? So I think, what he did last year has earned him week 1 at Heinz Field. And then it goes from there, right? At that point, then it's about production. Do they win? How does it look? How does he play? But like today, Brock Purdy can make throws that, with touch and timing that just scream out, this is the best quarterback on the field. The other guys make throws that say, wow, there's a lot of talent there. But, there's also inconsistency with Darnold. The turnovers are very real. He's been in the league 5 years, and Lance has missed, more than a handful of layups. So it's about consistency for Darnold, consistency for Lance, and for Purdy, it's about arm strength and ball speed. And if he can show that he's not diminished as a thrower of the ball.
Did you see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar out there today?
I was just talking to Lucas. I didn't see Kareem.
How'd you miss Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
I know. He must have been hiding out because, it's hard to miss a 7'2" guy.
Golly, yeah. So he's out there talking to the Niners, and you missed it?
No, I don't know what to say other than, Kareem is inspirational, I'm sure. And I know Shanahan likes to use different ways to kind of enlighten his team, inspire his team, entertain his team, motivate his team. So I'm not sure what led him to Niner practice, but who knows? Maybe he's Quantrez Knight is one of the Niners' young defensive backs, and he's looking pretty good. Maybe Kareem is a UCLA guy, is a Quantrez Knight fan.
I think he was trying to teach the quarterbacks how to sky hook inside the deep red zone.
There you go.
I think I know what happened to you, though. You were staring down at your phone, refreshing Twitter, waiting for the Giants to make a move.
I was just so wowed by the Pollock move. I was just so content with that move. I wasn't worried about any other move.
Okay, I'm going to tell. If he homers tonight, I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you, Larry.
I love how somebody suggested that they got him because they really want another bat against left-handed pitching, and then I quickly looked up what his number was against left-handed pitching.
He's been terrible.
It's like 114 or something, right?
Yeah, reverse splits.
But good news. They're facing a right-hander tonight, so take that, huh?
One other note from Niner camp, guys. One guy who is absolutely taking it to another level in these with the pads on is this second-year linebacker from Indiana, Marcelino McCrary-Ball. He was everywhere today. He dropped a pick from Brock Purdy. Could have been an easy pick. He's also made 2 or 3 incredible tackles. Remember that name when the preseason gets rolling. Marcelino McCrary-Ball. It looks like he looks like he is in the class of the other great Niner linebacker.
Wow.
He's so dominant physically, and he's everywhere. I mean, I won't say he's Fred Warner, but he is physically in that same category, and I can't wait to see what he does in the preseason.
Were you all over that before they picked him, or are you just there now?
Yeah, no, I was not all over that before they picked him. I actually just saw him last year in camp and thought, man, this guy looked good. Then I talked to him. I said, Marcelino, why exactly did you come here? There's so many good linebackers here. And he said, once his agent told him that the 49ers were interested, he had such respect for Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw and the way they play that he's like, those guys are dogs. I want to be a dog. I feel like I can run with them. And so he came here. He invested a year in improving, and here he is a year later, put on about 10 pounds of muscle, and he is just absolutely all over the place.
Okay.
And Larry, what's the O-line depth like? Because it looks like Jalen Moore hurt his knee today and rode a cart to the locker room. What can they do if they lose Jalen Moore in terms of backup depth?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They were already thin at tackle. That third tackle, they have Matt Pryor, who's a veteran, but Chris Forster, the offensive line coach, kind of already has mentioned how Pryor was not in very good shape in the mini camps, and he's only in marginally better shape now. That's a concern. I mean, Colton McKivitz was the swing tackle last year. Jalen Moore had been running as the swing tackle thus far in camp, and now with him down, it really opens up opportunities. I mean, they don't have a ready-made guy. They have Nick Sikel, they have Ilm Manning, they have Matt Pryor, but this is a outside the organization kind of a thing. There are some veteran tackles that people are suggesting could be available at the end of camp. Lael Collins is in Cincinnati, and he's not starting. They've got a little depth there. So there are some veteran players. They added Taco Charlton today as a defensive end.
Taco Tuesday.
So it's very possible that the Niners will have to look outside the organization for offensive tackle reinforcements, regardless of Jalen Moore's status.
Thank you, Larry.
Larry, thank you for coming on. Look up from your phone every once in a while. Sometimes a celebrity 7-footer is standing next to you.
Seriously. Maybe tomorrow Akeem Olajuwon will be there.
Let's find out. We'll check in with you. Again, buddy, if Pollock homers, I'm coming to you.
The Pollock era has begun.
Here we go.
Order my jersey.
Here we go. All right, Larry. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
See you, fellas.
Nice, Larry.
There it is. Yeah, there it is from Larry Krueger on the scene. He missed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but he saw all of Brock Purdy's completions, and he saw McCrary balling out on the defensive side for the 49ers.